Dylan Brogan here from Isthmus with Wisconsin Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes. Thank you, Mandela, for joining us today.
Hey, of course, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about the campaign. Really excited to be here.
Well, first thing we've been asking every candidate is, why are you the strongest Democrat to take on Ron Johnson in November?
I'll tell you, it comes down to a number of things, starting with my lived experience and then my decade-long record of service in the state. We deserve a senator who understands our struggles, somebody who gets it firsthand, somebody who can authentically connect and show up to middle-class communities and speak with authenticity, and also meet with working class people from all different backgrounds in this state. You know, I was born and raised in the middle class. I know the struggles firsthand of working people because I share those struggles. And I'm able to connect with people in every corner of Wisconsin because even though our lives may look a little bit different, our struggles are the same, but also the hopes and dreams. And this is a race that'll come down to authenticity. It'll come down to credibility. Who can connect with voters the most? Who can speak to the issues that people are dealing with on a daily basis? I'll tell you, like, it's not about red or blue, rural versus urban. This is about who's been at the top and the people who have been consistently left at the bottom. The voters know I don't have millions of personal wealth. I don't have the backing of corporate PACs, but what I do have is skin in the game. And the people that Ron Johnson has left behind, these are my family members. It's my community. These are my neighbors. And I've spent the last 10 years fighting for them. First as an organizer in Milwaukee, as a member of the state assembly, and now as lieutenant governor. And I'll tell you, finally, I didn't get here by accident. It was hard work. It was grit, determination, and most importantly, it was organizing. And it's not an accident that I have a lead in the polls. It's because of the decade that I spent building trust and credibility all across Wisconsin. And that's how we'll turn out, people. Turnout couldn't be more important. We saw that with the low turnout in Milwaukee in April. You can't just assume that people in Milwaukee and Madison will turn out for just any kind of Democrat. We're building a people-powered grassroots campaign with the excitement and the momentum to turn out voters in a tough year. And I can say that my campaign is the only one doing that.
So when you talk about that, you have lived experience. You know what it's like to be just your average Joe Wisconsinite. You're talking about Ron Johnson here?
Well, I'm saying however it applies. Okay. You know, people are sick of out of touch, ultra wealthy politicians, people who don't understand what they're going through. That's the problem with the Senate right now. The Senate is so broken because most of the people there have not experienced a day in the life of shoes of the average person in this country. I have, I've had my struggles before. I've been laid off from a job. I've been unemployed. I've been on Badger Care, and when people take votes on those sort of issues, whether it's the most extreme version where people want to cut those sort of programs, or even when people have the conversation about whether to expand or how far should we go, a lot of people aren't able to speak to it from any sort of experience. And that's a problem. People are going to continue to be left behind as long as the perspective of average working people is missing from the United States Senate. That's why we see so much bold legislation get stalled. That's why we see so many things reach the Senate only to die. And if we continue to have ultra wealthy politicians who don't understand it, people who've never had to struggle a day in their lives, then the reality of Americans will be missing from our government. And that will be, or I won't even say it will be, that is a shame, and it'll continue to be a shame. And we'll see things like income inequality continue to balloon over the course of the pandemic. Billionaire wealth increased an additional $1.5 trillion, and 7 million people found themselves in poverty for the first time. It wouldn't be that way if we had more working class people in the U.S. Senate.
So you mentioned you were born and raised in Wisconsin. You grew up middle class in Milwaukee. You went to college in Alabama at A&M, graduated. Then you came back to Wisconsin, and you did some community organizing, as you said, but you also got into politics early, and including you took on a Democrat to win a seat in the state assembly. So, what do you think that says about who you are as a politician and your values? And can you talk a little bit more about just your background as a political and elected official?
I'll tell you, being born and raised in Milwaukee is important. Being born and raised in Wisconsin is important because when I talk about understanding the challenges, the struggles people are dealing with, I'm saying this from every level, from birth in one of the most challenged communities in this entire country, to being a Milwaukee public school graduate, one of the most demonized school districts in the entire state, probably, I mean, I will go as far as say the most demonized school district in the entire state, but also a chronically underfunded school district, a school district that has higher poverty rate than most, students with significant challenges that aren't addressed outside of the classroom. So having that experience, having been in that school building and being able to be here as lieutenant governor speaks to the fact that there's so much more that we need to do to help our students, to help our children reach their most full potential. It's not about having being born into wealth. I tell people all the time, like I wasn't born into any sort of wealth. I was born in a hardworking union household, was not born in a politically connected family. I was born in a hardworking household, but my parents did expect a lot from me. And after, college, having worked on a campaign is where I felt like, yeah, well, this is something I'm interested in. And I was able to hear Barack Obama's DNC speech in 2004. That's what really inspired me. That's what really made me feel like things could change. So I became an organizer in my hometown. And we fought against Act 10, or the bill that would become Act 10. And there was an issue in Milwaukee that led to me running for office. There was a redevelopment project that was taking place, and they weren't using local labor like they were required to by federal law. And we didn't get the response we should have gotten from our elected leaders. A lot of them were Democrats. And I decided that this is a job I could do better if people didn't really want to take it seriously. And I still feel like an organizer at this moment. I'm focused on showing up in every community all across the state because I know the importance of showing up and having the important conversations, even if those conversations are hard. So yeah, ran for state rep in 2012, 10 years ago, which is incredibly hard to believe. Spent my time in the assembly fighting against the Scott Walker agenda. In 2018, was on the ticket to help defeat Scott Walker. And that's how we're going to defeat Ron Johnson this November. We're going to show up everywhere, not taking any vote for granted.
You brought in a progressive heavyweight, Elizabeth Warren, to campaign in May. You had a lot of people come out to see her and you together in both Mass and Milwaukee around the state. You're like you said, you're doing well in the polls. Why aren't you doing better? Do you think that shows a sign that maybe some of your opponents or voters are giving some of your opponents another look?
Well, I'll be honest. Senator Warren, as I mentioned in Madison, was one of the first people to bring up the idea of running for U.S. Senate. It has been the honor of my life serving as lieutenant governor, traveling to every single county my first year in office, meeting so many people from so many different walks of life. But looking around, you see that things are getting harder and harder for people, especially right now with rising costs. And it was important for me, especially in this moment, to have Senator Warren come to town to talk about the importance of protecting Roe and how it will come down to Wisconsin, how we will make the difference one way or the other. And she's also been a leader in the fight to bring an accountability back to our leaders, fighting billionaires and big money in politics. And as I mentioned earlier, it's not an accident that we have a lead in the polls. It's the result of the decade that I spent building trust and credibility across the state and working with so many people, even outside of the state, to highlight these issues that are impacting Wisconsin, but also the issues that impact other states across the country. And the U.S. Senate determining the outcome or not of which direction we'll end up going. My focus is and will always be on how we help working people in Wisconsin, the people that Ron Johnson has left behind while he delivered $200 million in tax breaks to his mega donors. And at the same time saying that we don't need good jobs in Wisconsin. I don't know how much more disconnected a person can be. And that's why we need more leaders in elected office and higher offices like the U.S. Senate who truly understand the challenges that are being felt in neighborhoods, communities, and households all across Wisconsin.
So whichever Democrat makes it through the primary will be somewhat, at least a challenger, maybe an underdog. I think you've been the underdog in the past, running with, Governor Tony Evers in 2018, trying to unseat a governor. Is it maybe in this primary race, you're not the underdog? Is that something you're not used to?
I mean, the thing is, I've only been an underdog. And even with the lead in the polls, even with the grassroots army that we've built that's powered our fundraising operation, even with the grassroots supporters and endorsers that we have. Again, I don't come from wealth. I don't come from a politically connected family at all. So there's nothing that I'm taking for granted right now. I can't write myself a check for this campaign. This is hard work reaching people where they are, but that's what makes it more special. I would much rather have $1 million $1 supporters and $1 million supporter, because this is about uplifting all of our communities. This is about bringing as many people bringing as many people on board as possible. This is about reaching people wherever they are, expanding the tent, broadening the tent as far wide as we can. That's why I'm excited to be in this race, to see so many people from so many different backgrounds, so many different walks of life come together to support this effort, because we have to move forward. And the only thing in the way of this state and this country moving forward is Ron Johnson.
So we were giving a chance to every one of the candidates to pick an issue that maybe we haven't addressed yet, and you feel is really important to highlight. What issue are you hearing about from voters, or you're particularly excited about?
Well, we hear so many different issues from voters. Certainly, protecting abortion access is top of mind for a lot of people. For most people, rising costs is top of mind for most people. And the thing is, the filibuster is in the way. And for me, rebuilding the middle class is the way to address so many other issues and challenges that we're dealing with, the issues that exist in urban centers as well as rural communities. And I'll just say quickly, catalytic converters, a thing that people don't often think about unless they're in the news when people are stealing catalytic converters from cars. But when the Clean Air Act passed, new emissions laws required that vehicles have those catalytic converters, and we needed people to build them. My dad was one of them. He worked on an assembly line, third shift, for 30 years. He was one of thousands of people, along with his brother, who got good paying jobs that they could support a family on, all because of the opportunity that was created when Congress took bold steps to address climate change. And I'll tell you, we have a moment to do it again. Climate change is already wreaking havoc on our communities all across Wisconsin, from the cities to the farms. And there is a once in a generation storm that seems to come almost every year now. And that's why we need bold, powerful, comprehensive action to address climate change that breathes new life into our manufacturing industry. China is building 80% of our solar panels right now. And we need to be in on that action so we can build those solar panels and those windmills right here at home, and we can drive down costs, and we won't be subject to a lot of supply chain issues we're dealing with. And as the chair of the governor's task force on climate change, I've shown an ability, I've demonstrated a desire and willingness and the level of effectiveness of bringing people together on all sides of this issue, from farmers to business execs to tribal leaders, environmental activists. And together, we came up with a plan that put Wisconsin in the driver's seat of our future. And that's exactly the kind of leadership I intend to bring to Congress. In the Senate, I'll bring people together to curb greenhouse gas emissions by transitioning to 100% renewable energy as soon as possible, and to also create good paying jobs by investing in clean energy manufacturing that'll make sure our country is energy independent. Now, it'll take a lot to protect our future, but if we do it right, addressing climate change is the way that we rebuild the middle class, is the way we make Wisconsin a leader for the next generation of manufacturing. And if I can go back to one part, the first question about being the best candidate. In 2018, 4 years ago, we had the highest turnout in midterm history in the state of Wisconsin. We have to do that again, plus some. And I'm the only candidate that's demonstrated an ability to do it.
And maybe if you can just talk a little bit more about these middle class jobs, because Milwaukee in particular is just over the last 40 years been so devastated by exactly what you're talking about, right? When you can't support a family on the kind of jobs out there. Do you think that's something that the Senate could be doing better in terms of just tax policy or trade policy? Where do you see the Senate helping out in that regard?
Both. We can't incentivize companies that are sending jobs overseas anymore. It is having a devastating impact on communities just like mine, just like the neighborhood that I was born in. When my granddad moved to Milwaukee after serving in World War II, Wisconsin, the city of Milwaukee specifically, was the best place for a Black family. We had the strongest Black middle class. And as you know, today it's the exact opposite. And with that loss of industry, with that loss of economic opportunity for families in Milwaukee or in Wisconsin in general, there came so many other things that filled the void: crime, violence. And we see the loss of industry in our rural communities have a devastating impact as well. We see this explosion of the addiction crisis that's taken lives left and right, upending families, upending communities, just leaving an incredibly devastating toll in its wake, and leaving a large gaping hole in communities as well.
Well, a rough transition here, so forgive that, because we're talking about some serious issues here, and I think you're right that maybe perhaps it's easier to point out in Milwaukee, but a lot of the same core issues exist in Milwaukee than in other communities that are struggling with similar things, just for a different lens on it sometimes.
It's the same exact thing. Neighborhoods have differences. So of course there are gonna be differences in urban and rural communities. But the fact is, people want good schools to send their children to. People want to be able to go to a doctor and not worry about a surprise bill. And people want a job that puts food on the table.
Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, the Democratic primary is August 9th, so remember to vote. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks a lot. Good to see you.